Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Rutherford Sports Network podcast. I'm John Thomas Hill, and um, just another day. Not really doing much around here, but I did want to talk a few subjects around my mind today. First of all, spring football is actually a thing, not just for high schools around here, but some of the small college conferences in the FCS and whatnot are playing football right now because it's a thing. And I like it. I like waking up on a Saturday in springtime and actually seeing some college football on ESPN Plus and whatnot, and it's kind of cool. I don't think it's going to be anything to continue to actually think that's going to stick around any length of time, but it's kind of nice to have that change of pace. But I do think, though, that it is something that could very well be in the future. And I mentioned women in football earlier. I'm not a big fan of the so-called Legends Football League because it's basically skimpy-dressed women in hockey helmets and shoulder pads playing just as hard as men do, and men are decked out in much more protective gear. I think women should be able to play football. I think they should play in traditional helmets. And, I mean, if you want to have a lighter uniform, wear lighter shoulder pads, lighter other pads to wear, and maybe, like in women's hockey, limit some of the contact to make it, because I think women's hockey actually is better in the Olympics than men's hockey is. The game tends to flow better, and it's much more enjoyable to watch than even though Olympic hockey is basically not really all that much contact as compared to the NHL. The women's game tends to be just as intense, if not more so. So, and I'd like to see women's football become a thing. It would solve a lot of Title IX issues, where you see some men's sports canceled because they have to meet Title IX requirements. If you have women's football and giving them scholarships for a spring football, even though it would not really be as nearly the revenue generator as men's football would be, it would still be something that would bring in a crowd and perhaps even break even, maybe, and make a profit in some cases. And I think there is something to that because, you look at the athletes who play lingerie, or I'll say lingerie, Legends Football League. They're actually rather good athletes. They're not just cute women in hot uniforms. These are actually athletes, and I would like to see them in less skimpy uniforms, not because I'm a prude, but because it would get the sport taken seriously. Because let's face it, the whole thing about this is guys gawking at, oh, look at the women hit each other and play football. I want it to be taken seriously. And there is some professional, semi-pro and whatnot amateur leagues out there, and they actually do pretty good for themselves. I mean, it's not men's style football at that level, obviously, but it's something that people go. If you watched it, you'd go, "There's something there. There is definitely something there." I'd love to see women's high school football and women's college football on women's high school football on Friday nights in the spring, and women's college football on Saturdays in the spring. It will never be as big as the men's. It doesn't have to be. It would get an audience. It would get, I think, really the traditionalists like it would. In many cases, I think it might even help the sport out by innovations coming into that sport that you might not see in the men's game. It would be more of a speed game. It'd be more of a technique game. It wouldn't be a power game necessarily, although there would be elements to that. In many ways, I really think that could be something. And plus, also, since, let's face it, inevitably they're going to do more to take a lot of the physicality out of football simply for the fact of the injuries. It's coming, you know it. Some of you may be dreading it. I think it's an inevitability because the simple fact is that right now a lot of parents are not letting their kids play football because of the risk of more concussions. And the NFL and the NCAA and high school federations need to do more to acknowledge that they need to fix the concussion problem, or at least address it more properly to where the risks are much more reduced. Even and ignore these people who go, oh, well, we are trying to soften up, blah, 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 blah. You know, do you bang your head in a wall constantly just because, oh, it's what my daddy used to do? My daddy used to bang his head against the wall. And now he's got short-term memory problems and other problems as well. Should I do the same thing or should I play smarter? The future of football is right now. Decisions are going to have to be made to how the game proceeds from here. I know some of you may be going, well, football, soccer. No, it's not. Here in the United States, it's not. Overseas, yeah, it is football. I'm talking about American football. And the fact is that there is definitely a need to change things up. There's definitely a need to fix the game. There's definitely a need to make it to where more parents are letting their kids play football. I think personally that Pee Wee and Pop Warner football up to maybe even middle school should be just either flag football or touch football or tag football. You know, get the intricacies and whatnot, but don't have the contact. Yeah, you know, it's going to be a tough sell because there are parents who love to see their kids put on the helmet and uniform and play like they did, but we can't live vicariously through our kids anymore. And this is something that really, really needs to be addressed. And I think I have addressed it in the past, probably on this podcast, although I probably need to do it again. Football has to change if it wants to survive. You've got less physical sports, just they're physical, but they're not as physical, like soccer, like lacrosse, basketball, of course, that are very popular, gaining popularity amongst parents and students because they know the chance of serious injury, especially to the head, is less. So football has to change. And the big hits, unfortunately, will have to go away. You know, many people, including myself, like seeing the big hits until we realize, including myself, they're probably paying for that in the long term. Maybe in the short term, too, depending on how severe the blow is. And that's something we didn't think about even 10 years ago. It's definitely 20, 30, 40 years ago we weren't thinking about it. We just